Greetings team, this is Christopher Littlestone of lifeisaspecialoperation.com, and in today's video I'm going to lay out how I trained for Special Forces Assessment and Selection, abbreviated SFAS, usually just called selection. I've already made a video about concepts for how to train for selection, and I discussed selection in other videos like how hard is the Special Forces qualification course. But in today's video, I'm going to simply lay out how I trained for Special Forces and what I would have done differently. I'll frame this video by discussing strength training, running, rucking, soldier competences, and along the way, I'll integrate what I've learned and what I would have done differently if I had to do it again. Let's get to it. Special Forces selection was hard for me. In fact, back then it was the hardest thing I had ever done. But what most aspiring soft guys don't know is that every phase gets harder, heavier, longer. Selection is significantly easier than small unit tactics. The officer phase had more fighting, longer field training exercises, harder field training exercises, and the academic standards were much higher. My ruck for Robin Sage was way heavier than any other phase. It just kept getting worse. I think the takeaway from this story is that you need to arrive to selection in amazing shape, but you also need to have your mind game dialed in because it only gets harder, heavier, and longer. Those of you who are doing it because it sounds cool will drop out. But if you know your purpose, are committed, and actually enjoy doing what soft guys do, then you'll find a way to make it through. One of my first videos is about the worst fitness mistakes. I tell a story about doing strength training with a buddy of mine who was into powerlifting for 6 months prior to going to selection. I would do morning PT with my company and then do a heavy muscle building workout in the evening. On top of eating 3 big meals a day, I also drank a 1,000-calorie protein shake every night before bed. At the end of the 6 months, I had lost 5 pounds, so that was kind of discouraging. But the fact was, I got stronger during those workouts and was glad to have a guy who gave me good instruction. My brother-in-law is a gifted athlete and one of the world's strongest men. He encouraged me to work on my squats, deadlifts, and bench, with the theory that these major exercises would build foundational strength and my peripheral muscles would follow. At the end of my weight training, I showed up to selection being able to do about 15 perfect pull-ups, 82 perfect push-ups, and 82 perfect sit-ups. Looking back, this was below average. Worse yet was that I could do the 15 perfect pull-ups, 82 perfect push-ups, and 82 perfect sit-ups when I was fully rested and full of good food. But that's not how soft trains. They give you a test, or they time you, or they observe you when you're exhausted and hungry. So in this situation, I would say that I should have shown up stronger, because you don't test and train when you're optimally fed and rested. As I said in my Special Operations Fitness Test video, my recommendation to you is to be able to show up for training being able to do 20 pull-ups, 82 sit-ups, and 82 push-ups. But let me add the caveat that you should be able to do this when you're tired and grumpy and feeling sorry for yourself. Let's move on to running. I've never been a naturally good runner, but I made up for it by having a lot of heart, and I give 100% every time. During my selection train-up, I was content with the running that we did with my conventional Army unit morning PT. That was usually 4 miles a day every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then on Thursday, we did a track workout where we did multiple 800-meter sprints. When I showed up to selection, I could run a 6:45 mile for 2 miles. But for a longer distance, I could run a 7-minute mile for about 4 to 5 miles. And I could run an 8-minute mile all day long. Again, I would say that this was below average. If I had it to do over again, I would have found a local track coach and learned better running form. Rather than having sloppy and ungraceful form with my heart about to explode out of my chest, I should have done more drills and made my technique smoother and more efficient. Being a more efficient runner would have saved me so much effort throughout a 20-year military career. So please heed my advice. If you want a career in the military, and for sure special operations, then work on your running form and efficiency. Rucking, on the other hand, was something that I was pretty good at, but I still made a lot of amateur mistakes. About a year before I went to selection, I started rucking every Saturday for about 2 hours, or 6 to 8 miles. I wore shorts and boots, made myself comfortable, and I carried about 50 pounds. The problem with this methodology is that 2 hours are easy. 40 to 50 pounds is easy. Walking on a flat sidewalk or on a dirt road is easy. In selection, you might do an 8-hour land navigation course. That's 8 hours under a ruck. And in special operations, you might go on a patrol mission where you walk 24 hours straight. And that's all day under a ruck in varied and rough terrain. You almost never walk on roads and where there are nice trails. It's insufficient to train for a 24-hour combat patrol with a 2-hour glamour ruck march in shorts, t-shirt, combat boots, and headphones. Thankfully, about 2 months before selection, I took 2 weeks of leave and I backpacked 250 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Basically, I walked from Roanoke, Virginia to Harper's Ferry. I hiked with or linked up with one of my buddies every 3 to 4 days to do a load of laundry, go grocery shopping, and go eat at a restaurant. I'm still so thankful to all of my kind friends who helped me train for Special Forces. I wanted a heavy ruck, so I packed a lot of good food. And this was nice because you all know that I'm a chow hound. I usually started off with 65 pounds to include water, and by the time I linked up with one of my friends for a resupply mission, I would be down to 50 or 55 pounds. Some days I or we would walk 15 miles. But we also had several days when we walked about 25 miles. This is not standard behavior on the Appalachian Trail, but I was training for selection, so I got intense and I really pushed myself. I know that this was one of the reasons I was successful at selection. I was used to hiking under a heavy load all day long. My feet and my shoulders were hardened. But if I had to do it all over again, I would have better followed my advice, train as you fight. Rather than hiking with my fancy civilian backpack, I would have backpacked with my Army ruck. Rather than wearing running shorts and boots, I would have worn my Army uniform pants, belt, and combat boots. And, as I always tell aspiring members of the Special Operations community, I would have carried an 8-pound weight the entire way. This weight simulates a rifle, and almost every ruck march you do in the military is with a rifle. I reported into selection confident that my feet would hold up, but after walking across streams, in swamps, on sand, and across all types of varied terrain, my feet had reached a new level of hardness by the time I finished selection. After selection, and in preparation for the Q course, I was much more deliberate about hardening my feet. I alternated boots. I alternated socks. Sometimes I didn't even wear socks. And sometimes I would start my training ruck march by pouring water into my boots so that my feet were already soaking wet. If you're looking to endure special operations training, then I highly recommend that you do the same. Let's move on to soldier skills and competencies. For selection training requirements, I like to recommend that aspiring special operators know their 2 N's, knots and navigation. Knots help you lash things together, fix broken equipment, and ensure that you never lose any gear. I was pretty good at tying knots from all my years in the Boy Scouts and years in the Army before going to selection, so I didn't do anything deliberate to train up for knots. But if you can barely tie your shoes, then I would do some research and learn a handful of good knots. As far as navigation goes, map and compass navigation helps you to successfully pass all of your land navigation requirements. Map and compass navigation allow you to patrol or to lead your team in the right direction. I was very good at map and compass navigation when I arrived to selection. This was from years of backpacking with the Boy Scouts, my 2 weeks on the Appalachian Trail, but mainly from years in the 101st Airborne Division, where I used to land navigate all over the place during our mini field training exercises. I personally saw several men crash and burn because they couldn't land navigate. So if you're not confident in navigation, then get some help and show up on your A game. Don't forget, selection is a mental game through the physical game, but being a great land navigator when you arrive is simply one less thing for you to worry about. I want to finish off with a discussion on physical and mental toughness, and I'll do so by discussing my first stream crossing at selection. I'll never forget that stream crossing in my life. It was a pivotal moment in my Special Forces career. My land navigation point was on the other side of a slow but waist-deep stream. It was January, just a few degrees above freezing. Man, this sucks, I thought to myself. I have to cross this stream, but I don't want to be wet. I don't want wet feet. It's going to take all day to dry off, and it's freezing outside. I should have trained for this, but I never hiked completely wet and frozen in my train-up. I know that Green Berets should excel when they're cold, wet, and hungry. Well, I guess this is right now. Should I quit? Absolutely not. No way. I can't quit because of frozen testicles and wet feet, but man, this sucks. I should have been mentally and physically prepared for this. Okay, let's do this. And off I went, never to look back. That entire conversation in my head lasted about 5 seconds, but I still remember it to this day. I tell this story with a lot of humility. It's embarrassing to admit that I was at selection for a career in special operations and that I had to think twice before walking across an ice-cold stream in a land navigation course. But as an officer, since the day I reported into my first platoon leader job, I always had a Humvee with my name on the windshield, and a driver. I still had a lot to learn about being an infantryman, a Special Forces soldier. Over the next year, I had hundreds of opportunities to be frozen and wet. My small unit tactics instructor never once let us use a bridge. We had to swim across streams and rivers every day. I went to SEER school and Ranger school in the winter, then dive school. I actually got so used to being wet that it became a non-issue. Nothing. It never even occurred to me or was a factor. I became and was physically and mentally tough. But you can't get to that point overnight. You build physical and mental toughness by doing and accomplishing hard things. So if you're interested in a career in special operations, then start building your physical and mental toughness now. Do and accomplish hard things, then do it again with something harder. Okay, so there you have it, an overview of how I train for special operations selection. If you're looking to prepare for selection or a career in the military or special operations, then please check out some of the resources available at my website, lifeisaspecialoperation.com. I've got a few workout programs for you to use to take your fitness to the next level. I have a book and course on developing the special operations mindset. And I've got a workshop where I discuss how to train up for and get selected for special operations training. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to join my Life as a Special Operation team. And be sure to forward this video to a friend or family member who needs to see it. Life is a special operation. Are you ready for it?